Never ready. What do you mean?
Never ready.
Right,
Ready,
yeah.
ready enough.
Twist.
So first and foremost, welcome to you both. Julian, I've worked with you before at the conference, and Adam will actually be joining us at the conference this year. And for those of you who are not familiar, the 6th annual Broadleaf Writers Conference will be virtual again, just playing it safe this year. And that one will be October 16th and 17th. We're actually working on an evening event for Friday the 15th to go with it, with yet another pandemic-inspired reduced rate. And you can find information for that on the Broadleaf website. Crystal will drop a link in here for you. We have a great list of speakers. Again, we're still adding some more to it. We'll have agents, we'll have publisher reps. We'll be doing 2 days of panels and workshops and one-on-one sessions and everything that we can do to try to get faces on the screen so we can see one another. And so there'll be lots of information coming out soon. And I think we learned a lot from last year's virtual event. And I think this year is going to be fantastic. Our conference committee is working hard to come up with something really great this year. But tonight, we're talking with these two gentlemen. And we'll just do a brief introduction, and apologies for me just reading your bio, but I don't want to leave anything out. So Adam began writing books in Sharpie on the back of, I love this, Starbucks pastry bags. He said he's sorry if it distracted you from his making your latte. Raised in an Illinois farm town, his desire for a creative career took him to Chicago, New York, Los Angeles, and currently North Carolina, which has a lot in common with those other big cities, where he lives with his husband in, I was in Dawson's, is that right? Dawson, so I say it correctly. His dogs. When he's not hot takes on Twitter, Adam is a recurring co-host on the popular Buffy the Vampire Slayer podcast, Slayerfest 98, which I know I could actually have a whole conversation with you about. Surrender Your Sons is his first novel, and you can find more information about Adam at adamsassbooks.com. Julian Winters is the award-winning author of Running with Lions, which won an IBPA Benjamin Franklin Gold Award, as well as How to Be Remy Cameron and The Summer of Everything. A self-proclaimed comic book geek, Julian lives in Decatur, Georgia, where he can be found watching the only two sports he can follow, volleyball and soccer. No baseball, no football, no basketball, that's it.
Nothing else. I know none of those rules.
His next book, Right Where I Left You, will be released in spring 2022, and you can find him at julianwinters.com. So again, welcome, gentlemen. I'm very, very happy to have you here.
Super stoked for this. I've been looking forward to this ever since our first email exchange.
Excellent.
I know. Yeah, it was such a joy to get. I mean, any opportunity to be able to talk to Julian again over this. We're only in like 6 group chats, so I'm not tired of him yet. Yeah.
I was really.
He's not
really,
tired of me yet. Yeah.
I was really worried about the energy between you two and whether or not we'd be able to pull off a conversation today. So.
As you should be. There's a lot of tension between us, so you should be very cautious.
Yeah, this is gonna be one of those verses or whatever. Yeah, this is just we're just gonna beef it out. Yeah. All right, this is what you all come here for, not about our books. It's about us to
and
really
get
down to the bottom of what's going on.
I have been warned that I may need to police you, Sue. So if you guys, yes. So anyway, so let's just jump right into it, since we're going to have a lot to talk about and probably a lot of words to say. So let's start with publishing journeys, because both of you have taken. I don't know if now we would call it a traditional or non-traditional route to it, in that you have you started either through small or indie presses and have worked your way up to bigger presses and bigger books. And so just kind of tell me a little bit about those journeys for you in particular, and what it has meant to you as a writer. And Adam, we'll start with you.
It's interesting because I don't know. I kind of came at this, Surrender Your Sons is my first book. It's the first book I have finished. I keep joking, because I'm working on deadlines right now. And I was like, well, this is exciting because I have finished one book in my lifetime. So we will see if I finish this other one. So I feel a little like, yeah, this feels very non-traditional. So please take it with a grain of salt when I share my story, like here's what this happened, because Surrender Your Sons was a labor of love for me for about 7 years. I spent 20 years in LA screenwriting, and I came from just sort of a film background. That was my major. That was everything I was doing during my 20s. And then I had my return of Saturn, and my priorities shifted. So that brought me to publishing and kind of, talking about the book that I always wanted to write. So really, this is like the dream book. I worked on it for like 7 years basically. And I've tabulated it. If you combine all the agent and editor rejections from querying and from sub, this book has been rejected 110 times. Across multiple versions. My own agent, Eric Smith, rejected it. The very book he sold. Come back here April 8th to learn more about that between him and I during our verses. Yeah, it's been interesting. So this was sort of, Surrender Your Sons it's a book for those who've not read it or aren't familiar. It's a queer thriller. It's about a young queer boy who is sent to a conversion therapy camp in a mysterious Pacific island. So really heavy subject matter, but I really wanted to do a big splashy adventure story, kind of revenge extravaganza piece as well. I didn't want to do it more of a traditional dramatic unfolding of events. I really wanted this to be kind of a Kill Bill sort of thing, where it was like really like you took a serious topic but went real big and baroque with it. So there's humor, there's laughs, there's lots of different stuff. So that genre blend can really grab a reader. It can also be like a tough sell when it's your first book and it's been batted around a bit. So it kind of kept slipping through people's hands. So it did end up at Flux, who is a wonderful indie publisher who really believed it and took a chance. And that is really what it required. It required somebody to take a chance, because this book really, by the time it was done baking, it was what it was. This was not going to be some other book. If you had an idea of what else you wanted it to be, too bad. Like, it was going to be this book. So, it is kind of important that it kind of start at this sort of indie level. And I'm also, as Julie and I will get into, really big on self-promotion on Twitter and on Instagram and just kind of all over the place, really like finding different ways to tell your story. Not that I think that there's really a huge giant direct correlation between how much you're socially online and how well your books are doing. I think there's a million other factors. So if that's not your comfort zone, that's like fine. But if that is what you're comfortable doing, I think it's a really great opportunity to get you to really pitch your book in 200 different ways and really get to know your book like better than ever. And I learned more about this book after it was written, like than I had the entire time.
Julie?
So for me, when I was drafting Running with Lions, it was back like 2014, 2015, around that time. And the closer I was getting to finishing it, to a revision that I felt like I could finally put out there, there weren't a ton of books out there that were really like splashed in your face from LGBTQIA authors, especially not ones who were Black or, a person of color. So when I looked at the market, or when I looked at what was happening in publishing, I said, so there's not a space for me. It just felt like there wasn't a space for me. And I wasn't tough enough at that time to kind of go down the path of, okay, let me just go for it and try to, go the traditional route of getting an agent and then trying to, sell to a big five at the time, big five, and go that route. So what I did is I started researching online for LGBTQIA publishers that specifically spoke to the kind of stories I wanted to tell. And I happened upon, I was a big Tumblr kid back then, so Tumblr gave me all my information. And I happened upon Interlude Press through reading a couple of their books and kind of putting together, oh, this is all by the same publisher. This is awesome. I love their works. And they had a YA line called Duet Books. And I was like, maybe I should try this. So I did research on their social media and through their website, maybe did a little stalking of them to see, you know, what they were had coming out and whether or not I would fit in. And it turns out when I submitted my novel, like I think within 3 months time, it turned around, they were like, hey, we'd like to, you know, talk to you about this. And they wanted it. And I couldn't believe it. But I also honestly appreciated going to that because they've been amazing to me. But like Adam said, when you're working with a smaller publisher, the tool set that you can build there, where there's not like 17 people to feed you things and to make sure certain things are done, when you're working with a small group and you're all really, you know, trusting each other to support every, you know, part of the train, it's an amazing experience. So for me, it was like the perfect home to go to, feeling like I didn't have a space yet, or I didn't have a voice yet out in young adult. So after 3 books, that's when I finally, you know, went and queered an agent who I love dearly, and she's been amazing to me. My next book is coming out with Viking's Children, that's under Penguin. So it's been a wonderful journey, but starting there, I think really helped to build the kind of author I want, you know, the world to see me as, but also build me as like a business person and understanding every part of the machine, instead of just going in thinking that, you know, everyone's just going to give you this and help you with that. And it's not like that. So I say all that to say, sometimes the traditional route, the road that everyone says is made of gold, is not the road that you should be walking down. Sometimes you have to go around that side path or go down another path that can be just as golden, but it's built more suited for you versus what is for everyone else.
Yeah, it's really a blessing. It really is. Like I feel like Julian, you and I are very well set up now to go to a bigger place and just be like, yeah, okay, we got our whole like one-man band kind of stuff like that, and we're like, what do you got to do with this, like, and you know, and they'll kind of be like, well, we have this team that does so so yeah, you kind of get into, and Julian, like, correct me if I'm like, if you feel this way too, but like it kind of like self-promo when you're at a smaller place, it's great, there's like a ton of freedom, you know, which can be daunting if that's not your thing. But if it is your thing, it can be really exciting, because a lot of times, and I feel like you know, I won't name names or whatever, but like I'll have like I'll like kind of do stuff on Twitter. I'll just like do stuff, and not having run it by anybody, like on my team, nobody, like, and I'll have other authors just be like, oh, so your like publicist team, like they like approved that, and I was like, oh, maybe I should have asked them if that was cool to do that. Like, so it's a little bit of a like ask for forgiveness, not permission, and most of the time, like, they're cool with stuff. Just be cool to people. Don't be like harassing anybody, but just
it's
as long as you're like kind of just throwing stuff out there and you're not like spilling secrets.
I think that's probably the blessing of the smaller press, is that it's the curse that you have more work that you have to do for your own on your own behalf, but you also have more freedom to do the things that make you uniquely you. But in the same time, you were both building up a pretty solid platform, which is something that bigger publishers look for, because they aren't going to invest a lot in marketing despite the size that they may be. And so you already having your platform is great. So you getting a jump on that. But all right, so we're gonna roll on and talk about inspirations. You know, you both have written very powerful stories, you know, independently of one another, and I'm curious as to what inspired those stories. What brought them about? Obviously, Adam, you had a very deep connection to the story you wanted to write, and Julian, you've got several in your belt. And let's start with you. I mean, what inspired the stories that you have written?
Oh gosh, I love this question. Because for me, growing up, a lot of the media and literature that I consume often did not focus on people like me. And if they did, the stories were tragic. They were filled with pain and harmful imagery, which is not great to see when you're like 8 years old watching TV and say, oh, that person looks like me. Oh, next thing they're dead. Okay. So like a lot of it, like it's just so much tragedy was shown to me, or I read about it, and it was disturbing. It really, you know, creates this thought in your head that's your destiny, that's your next step. And I hated that, and it really messed with my mind. So I started writing stories to give myself a happy ending, to be the star of the show, to be the hero, whatever the case may be. So for me, every book that I write, from Running with Lions, Summer of Everything, stories are always very personal, because it's like I'm giving teen Julian this, the victory that he was not shown back then. But I'm also saying to teens now, like, you deserve this. This is not something you have to earn, whatever your identity may be. Just because it doesn't fit into what the norm is, does not mean that you're not deserving of joy and happy ending, and to fall in love, or just to fall on your face, to make mistakes, to have a great friend group or a great support group, from whether it's family or the adults around you. So that for me is what fuels every single story that I write. It's just to make sure that people know that they know everything doesn't have to be earned. Just like, Zach Morris was born in a life of privilege, you too can have this wonderful life, and get and get whatever it is that you want out of it.
Adam?
Yeah, it's really is about that. It really is about kind of, taking these things that like you love so much and seeing all of the negative space around it where you're supposed to be. Where you, because that's the other thing is about this, is that like media for so long, and I'm gonna really talk about movies and TV, because like I said, that's my background here. There's a ton of book stuff that's inspired me, but to really answer this question appropriately, I got to talk about like movies. I was big growing up, like 90s, 2000s thriller guy. Like I loved any, and I still will, even though it's probably the most homophobic, homo erasing landscape there is. I'm still like, oh man, I love that movie. Oh, okay. I'll just have to get through that scene where this thing, this happens. Like even specifically, I remember rewatching Michael Bay's The Rock, which if anybody has seen that cinema. Yeah, so that's something where like there was like a like Sean Connery's character like had like a hairdresser or whatever, was like fixing his hair up because he was like an ex-con. Anyway, I'm not gonna unfold the story of The Rock here on this. Everybody's here with precious time. But anyway, like there's this like firefight breaks out, and that guy like very comedically, haha, like has a full breakdown, can't handle it, hides in a bathroom stall, sobs. That sort of thing. Either like we were disposed of, we didn't exist, or like we could barely handle the situation. So I was like, God, I really, really, really like, I was like, oh man, queer people are so tough. They'll just like be in this awful situation and then just start cracking jokes and then handle it. So I was like, I mean, you're just not seeing that. You're either like, people are just, now the problem is more, I think, erasure in these movies, where you're just like fully not seeing anybody because they don't want to do it and do it wrong, or for whatever reason. And it's weird. I'm probably alone in this. I would appreciate poor rep than no rep. I don't know. Like it was like I would rather see me like existing and done in like a really terrible way than you're not part of this. You're not part of this in any way. So with Surrender Your Sons, I was like, okay, I really, really, really want to do one of these things where it's a thriller, classic kind of 90s, thing where every moment is high intensity. It's like Long Kiss Goodnight, where every scene is like, what? Love Long Kiss Goodnight. Go, it's on HBO Max. Go watch it. But long story short, like I wanted to not just like see myself in that. I wanted to like really be like, no, like you're not understanding. Here's how we would handle that situation. Whole big group of queer people. It would be like, not only shut down, it would be, you'd be cracking. It wouldn't be misery. That's the other thing, is I was like, I don't find my book to be like wall to wall heavy misery. Like there's a lot of heavy themes, but I was like, no, I really want there to be popcorn moments. I want there to be like, they're cracking jokes with each other. They're mouthing off, cracking jokes to the villain who's about to kill them. So, and that's my experience of the queer community. So that's really what inspired me, is I was like, oh man, you're just not telling the story right.
Yeah. And I mean, listening to both of you, it seems that the inspiration derives from, lack of representation and the stereotypes that come with being part of the community that you're in, which leads me right into a question about community. Now, I mean, obviously you guys are both very entrenched in the LGBTQ plus community, and it means a lot to you, as it should. And your books have shown that. And it represents all that you are and all that you've endured. And what kind of advice would you give writers? I think there's two questions here. One, what do you hope readers gain from your work? And secondly, for the writers, I mean, what? Trying to think how to say this. What should writers learn about writing for a community? That's just two very big questions. So let's just take the reader's side of it first. So what do you hope readers gain from your work? Adam, why don't you start that one?
I can do that, yeah. Well, what I hope readers get from, whether they're, I think if they're specifically talking about people who are queer, all stripes of queer, I would love for them to see their own experiences maybe reflected, or to maybe like learn a different point of view, or have something voiced that maybe they could never put their finger on. There's a lot of like queer rumination and queer theory hidden, snuck in, baked into Surrender Your Sons. A lot of question asking, a lot of like, what does it mean to be queer? What is it, how do you define it? And I hope queer readers, however you define that, see themselves in that, or at least just they understand someone else a little bit better, because it's not everybody's experience is the same. So it's like, oh, that's how I'm queer, but that's how my other queer friend processes things. Like, oh, I understand that now. For non-queer readers, I think it's one of those things where like we have a lot of work to do telling our stories a little bit more correctly, a little bit more like, the experience is a little actually closer to this, but again, here's one of many. You've only really been served a small portion of that so far, because only so many of these stories get told for so long over the decades. I think only up until like very recently has there been like, you've been shown the intersectionality of the queer community, all the different ways that can be defined. So I think that's something where it's like I want people to have that sort of curiosity, to be like, oh yeah, here's how I can contextualize them in this story that isn't an AIDS crisis story or an issue book. This is an issues book, but like I said, like I usually say, it's all my books are issues books. They're my issues. They're fun.
Julian, your turn to take on the reader question.
Awesome. I loved how you put baked in there, because it just made me think about pie. And I was just like, yeah, that's on brand for us.
Let's just pivot to pie right now.
What do I mean, I hope that readers take from my book, queer, non-queer, whomever is reading it, that there is normalcy, there is joy, there is pain, but there is also triumph in every person's story. I hope that people, when they pick up my books, they realize that not all books with a queer main character are focused on the same set of issues and the same narrative all the time. That we have such layered stories to tell, and it's shown right now through the books that are coming out. Like a book like Adam's, where it is this thriller, which you don't often get with an LGBTQ main character, but it's this thriller that is dark, but like dark humor, and it's brilliantly done, that takes on issues that The Summer of Everything does not take on. But The Summer of Everything does look at other issues that exist within communities, not just the LGBTQ community, but what it's like for Wes as being a biracial kid, and what it's like for Nico and his community, and Cooper, who is an asexual character. It's just all these different parts that make us all human can interconnect within these stories, and it doesn't have to be just seen as the LGBTQ book. Many people can relate to our stories, and if not, they can find someone they know within the text and say, wow, I never thought of, what they go through here, or what might be happening over here, or the things that we share that are so similar, that I've been ignoring because all I see is our differences. And I hope that's what they take from our books, and the plethora of books that are out there right now, because there are so many stories.
So we're going to jump to the writers here, and I just want to remind people to get your questions, and we do have some rolling in, and there's a couple that I actually want to be able to get to before we get to the end, but one after this one. But let's shift to writers now, and Adam, you had mentioned queer and non-queer readers, so let's take that kind of approach with the writers and talk about writers who represent a community they want to write about, or represent a type of person that they want to write about, versus a writer who doesn't but wants to write about a character. Now, you had mentioned before that you'd rather see representation, even poorly done, versus not at all. But if in that context, if I'm a writer who wants to write a gay character, what kind of advice would you give me as a writer, to make sure that I do it right?
Well, I mean, it's a conversation that we're constantly having, and I don't think there's a right answer, but I'm going to give kind of my best answer right now, which is I think it's a very noble thing to want to like more accurately reflect the world in your stories, rather than write from a place of fear and go, well, I'm going to mess up, so I'll just make everybody, kind of my own lived experience. I think it's very, very important for non-marginalized, however you define that, non-marginalized authors, to do a lot of their research. I think, like, I feel like with when I say do your research, that's just a like empty word now. I should probably say more like just be curious about what it's like really like living this life. I would just say, like, I would be like, and understanding and appreciating that like there's so many different ways, like to not be like, oh well, this is my one friend that I know really well, and so that's that story. But I would say in general, I would say don't be afraid to like ask questions of folks. I would, like, and again, something that Julian was saying earlier made me think about this, which is I'm probably forgetting like whatever the real term is for this, but a lot of non-marginalized readers and viewers don't have to do that conversion in their head that more marginalized readers and viewers kind of just growing up have to do. Like, when I see, like growing up all these movies, like if there's like a romantic MF relationship, I could connect to it, but my baby brain did have to do all that work to just reconfigure it to mean something to me. And I would say a lot of people who are not marginalized, not just queer, but racially and culturally, who are not marginalized, they've never had to they sometimes do segment that off and be like, oh, that's an LGBTQ book, or that book isn't for me, that's for other folks. I'm glad it exists, but I'm not going to bother reading it. I would say get really curious about that. I would just say read a lot more, specifically a wide variety, not just the white cis gay books, because there's a ton of those, and a lot of those were kind of some of the only things that were being published for a while, and still are very pretty predominant. And I would say something as a writer now for myself, a lesson I took, because I was like, okay, well, I'm not the king of being marginalized, so I need to like, where are my spots that I'm missing in my work? And so that's why Surrender Your Sons it's a group of 12 campers, and all of them are from different backgrounds. They have different marginalizations. They have different experiences being queer. They have different bad homes or better homes. They have been through the camp longer. There's different points of view. And so what I really wanted to do with Surrender Your Sons was show a cross section of the queer community and show, here's how you take 12 people who have been purposely separated, and who probably are not, who think they're alone, who think they themselves have to just get themselves off the island, and then realize the only way they get off is if everyone gets off. So gets off the island. That's a weird way of saying. Forgive me.
We can't suppress the middle schoolers in us. We know.
There we go. Exactly. So there's a, so that's the thing where there's a sense of shared community. And so I think that's why I think my more white cis gay readers and writers who are picking up Surrender Your Sons, I would like them to see, like, here's how I chose to tell a story of a white cis gay character in an oversaturated market. How do you make that important or necessary, and then truthful, and then mean something to people? And I think that is where you show a kid like Connor, my main character, community building and listening to everybody else. And so sort of leading by example within that. There's sort of ways you can, and something that I think Orange is the New Black did really well, which is sort of start with this, sort of very non-marginalized character, but really she was this Trojan horse into a story where you see this greater community and you get to see all these other different stories that way, and sort of a way of bringing in viewers and readers who, like, maybe otherwise might not have picked up that book or started that show.
Yeah. Julian, do you have anything?
It's such a big topic that I feel we could go for another hour on it.
It really is.
That could have been the whole night.
Yeah.
I won't, because I'm told with Adam, there is no perfect answer to this. I will say, if you are within the community and you're having any kind of trepidation about trying to tell that story about, your own lived experience, there's one thing that you have to understand, is that your story does not have to represent the entirety of the community. It is just your story, your lived experience, the things that that you want to tell. So it doesn't have to represent everything. So don't be scared to wade into those waters if you're part of that community. If you're outside of the community, I'm going to steal a little bit of knowledge that I got from the genius Adib Karam. Please don't tell him I said that about him, because ego is out of control. But no, a question, he had this question of the day, and the first thing he said is, if you want to tell that story and you have no one in your life that has that lived experience that represents that, first question you need to ask yourself is, why is that? Why is your community just solely based on people strictly like you? Why don't you have more of these people in your life before you go telling any portion of their story? The second thing that you need to consider is, why do I want to tell this person's story? Why do I feel this person is giving anything to the overall story that I'm telling? What do they represent? If you're doing it just for diversity and culture, brownie points and everything, then that's not the reason you need to tell the story. I appreciate you trying to put the Black guy in there, but at the same time, if I am going to be just Zach Morris painted Black, then I'm good without it. You need to go in with thought. You need to go in with care. Like Adam said, research. I think research is a great word, because you do have to put in research. Makes you think, okay, this is going to be work, and that's what you need to do. You have to put in the work before you go trying to represent something that you have no immediate interaction with. So yeah, those things are super necessary. But I'm not going to discourage anyone from going the path they want to go. We're all adults, hopefully. So you're going to do what you think is you're going to do. But I just ask that you think through it before you go ahead and dedicate to something that could possibly be harmful, but it might not. There's a lot of great, characters that I've read that I felt like truly represented me, that were not written by people that look or have lived like me. So it's not that it can't be done, but I ask that the care and the thought be put into it before you go jumping in feet first.
I think that's really, really so much more succinct than the blather I said. But I would say, to button that up, to put on top of that, I think someone told me once that it's kind of more like, if the more you it's like you're a guest, acknowledge you're a guest in the house, like behave that way, I would say. And to the, don't try to represent everybody within this one thing, it's like that. I think the one thing you should definitely not do, regardless, if you're not that marginalization, is tell an issue, like try to be like, I'm going to tell this issue about that this person kind of dealing with, be like, no, this person is dealing with the issue of the plot and everything. I would say in general, that's a better, safer bet, a more respectful bet, is to just be like, oh, I'm gonna this is gonna define the queer experience or the Black experience, like whatever. And it's like, there are plenty other authors for that. Why don't you just like other folks
just
have that?
Promote their stuff.
Right, exactly. I would say, just like read a ton and then probably sort of interrogate why you're doing it, and then at the end just be like, yeah, what you're doing is sort of, you are bringing this kind of voice into that world to more reflect the world, but you are not by any means to be like, this is gonna, I'm gonna tell, I shall tell your story, that meme that's everywhere. Yes.
Well, feeding off of those two questions, and I'm going to draw these from questions we have from attendees, and keep those questions coming. We got some good ones in here. One is actually just for you, Julian, which was Adam had said that he would rather see no representation rather than poor representation. So what about you? The question is, would you rather see no representation or poor representation?
As someone who has seen enough stereotypes of the queer community, the Black community, so many different parts of my intersectionality, I would be perfectly fine with no representation, and I can just go about my way, rather than feeling as though, I think poor representation, the way I look at it is, I'm going to roll my eyes and keep moving. But how does that poor representation look on people who are not within my community? How do they look at me when I walk down the street? So if I'm stereotyped as, like Adam says, someone who can't handle, tough situations, how does that look to a stranger down the street when this tough situation comes around? Or if I'm looked at, if the one Black character is poorly shown, how do people look at me when we're passing each other on the street? Do they feel threatened by me, even though I'm smiling behind my mask and have this bright pink shirt and all these non-threatening things? Do they still feel threatened by me, by that poor representation? So yeah, leave me out of it. I don't need to be in certain movies anyway, or books. I'm good. I would not survive in Narnia. I'm not about that life, so it's fine.
I just gotta say, poor representation is bad. I do not approve of it. I just I'm not good for that.
This is how Adam gets canceled on Twitter.
I was just gonna say, I was like, please cancel me. I can't do the rest of this year. I can't. I need a break. But I would say in general, that's just my own personal preference. It is extremely harmful to the community, and it should go away. Because that's the thing. I've seen in my own life where, I'm a handle myself kind of person, but in a situation where I start to get a little I'm overwhelmed, at work or within my family, I get a lot of anxiety about that, because I feel like folks are looking at me like, oh, there's that.
There's the gay trait. Yeah, right. Instead of it being just a human, instead of just being a human reaction, all of a sudden it's just a reaction exclusive to the gay community. That's
right.
it.
And it's kind of it's a confirmation bias. It's like, my world makes sense because this is the thing I was always told these folks do, and here he is doing it. So that's it's not good.
Yeah. So we're gonna move to this next one, and the question is for both of you, and it's: have either of you felt the pressure to write acceptable queer characters or stories, and what do you do with those pressures if you feel them?
I feel that pressure all the time. I would say, except Julian, we have discussed this, I'm sure, in the past. And this feeds into the overall narrative I think we're building in this, which is there is not one gay person. There is not one, there is not one identity. There is, I think in digestible media and in, and in YA especially deals with this as well because it's a younger crowd. The readership is different. There are certain expectations which if you go into Goodreads, which you shouldn't do as an author, you will see sometimes you'll see these really like nitpicky reviews that are like oh, he mouthed off at this, I didn't like that, did not finish, or whatever like that, like. And this is somebody who I know their presence online is like they'll watch like the Lucifer, like about Satan, like they'll whatever, like they'll be into like Hannibal Lecter, but a gay guy like is like not the best friend who's like super helpful and happy and kind of sweet all the time, because like there are all these different types. I'm not invalidating the helpful sweet type, on a good day that is me, on a bad day not so much. So I think, yeah, I feel the pressure to do that. I also know that when I write a more kind of jagged edged gay guy, that it's going to be seen as like difficult and maybe like, no, I don't like that, or oh, you're just like that guy I know how I don't like, that's not what I came here for, like whatever, I don't know, you're that mean guy at work I don't like. I don't know, I feel like sometimes there is a pressure to be like, okay, great, here's some gay stories, like it better be this way. I think with each passing year we're doing better, and that's getting, and I think readers are getting a lot more accepting, and like people have super embraced Connor and everything, and he's, although there was I had a really good, even in a really good review, sometimes this will sneak in, called Connor an anti-hero, and I was like, under and it still stuck with me. I was like, oh, anti-hero though, but like Walter White, I was like, anti-hero to, I don't know, like maybe we're all just like thinking about different terms for things. So I don't know, that's my answer. I'm not gonna dig my hole deeper.
What about you, Julian?
Yes, I do find, and it may be all self-imposed, I'm not going to say it is always exterior forces, but I mean, a lot of the times you'll see a giant mob of fans who latch onto the cinnamon roll adorable character, and while I myself love cinnamon rolls, I can't say that I always want to write a certain type of tropey character like that. I feel like the queer community should be able to see themselves in all different aspects of their personality and who they are. If that means that they're prickly, like, I don't think Connor's prickly person. I think he just spoke his mind, but that's fine.
Sorry, he was in a stressful situation. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like things like that. It's like what it feels like. I have to wait for people to give me permission to write me fighting back against things that in any other situation it would be perfectly okay for a person to react this way. So yeah, I do definitely feel that I have gotten better over books about saying, you know what, if they don't like the character, hopefully they'll just like the plot and we'll move on. It's fine with me, because no one's ever going to, there's not enough love in this for everyone to love everything that you write, every character that you've created, whatnot. So I'm kind of learning to accept that it's better to be honest, and it's better to reflect the actual world than it is to give people this wonderful, adorable cinnamon roll every single time. Again, just like I have nothing against cinnamon rolls. I personally am one, but I do know I have moments where I have been very snappy, and the world just did a like kind of moment, and it's like, yes, this exists inside of me, just like it does inside of you. You just might not see it as often. It doesn't mean that it's a bad thing.
That's exactly true. Like, I feel because what you said about the self-imposed nature of that, Julian, like it's because our whole lives, and I know you and I have talked about this, and I know you for sure deal with this constantly, is the idea to make yourself as palatable as possible, not just to the book community, but in real life, where it's, there's just some stuff you don't do, you don't say. There's some people you don't mouth off at, and there's a lower tolerance for queer people. There's definitely a lower tolerance for queer people of color. So it's a struggle to like have spent fill in the blank years, however long Julie and I are. I don't know. I don't know how old you and I are. I really don't. 20? 20. But that amount of time on this planet, this terrible planet, making yourself as palatable as possible, that's going to rub off. And especially if you do look at the book community and you see that the queer YA stories that are getting, maybe not, it's even if it's not antagonistic towards those characters, you see the ones that get absolutely pedestaled with blink, they get the fan art, they get the this, that, it is the cinnamon rolls, it is 100%, that is what gets lifted up. No problem with that. But if you got some fan art, why don't you throw it some to the little thriller boys as well? We don't have fan art.
The prickly cactuses, come
on. My little
on.
prickly cactus. Yeah, just love us. Yeah, no, it's hard because again, you see what gets lifted up. You go your whole life feeling this way about yourself. It's more that confirmation. It's more, okay, this is how the situation's going to be. I have to go write this cinnamon roll now, or I'm going to be on the unemployment line. Like, so that's how it feels sometimes.
Yeah.
It feels like, well, your days are numbered unless you're doing that, which is so poisonous to creativity, because then it just becomes like, oh, all the stories are just this one story.
Yeah.
Which more of everything is what's needed.
So we've covered like representation and stereotypes and community and in context of everything that we went through last year. The call for social causes has become more prominent, and I think the awareness of these things have become more prominent. And Adam, actually, this is just I wanted to give you a moment because with Surrender Your Sons, you actually partnered with an organization that's called Born Perfect, and I wanted to give you an opportunity to one talk a little bit about why you chose that, and secondly what you hope people can or what you would like people to know about the organization.
Sure. Born Perfect is the leading anti-conversion therapy organization in the nation. Matthew Shirka, who's a co-founder, became a good friend of mine and was someone who was instrumental in my research process because I myself am not a conversion therapy survivor, so that was my own research in how do I make this book super respectful to the survivor experience. I couldn't just go whole hog writing a, yippee-ki-yay fun adventure kill 'em all thriller, but something that spoke to the that like was not against the survivor experience, that really spoke about it, but was sort of acted on a more wish fulfillment level for folks. And so Born Perfect was someone who I've been wanting to work with forever, because while I was working with them, I was working with Garrett Conley, who is the author of his memoir, Boy Erased, which was then turned into a film. And then I was working on an advertisement campaign for Boy Erased, and that's when I got to really know Garrett. That's when I really got to know Matthew Shirka. So I got to know a lot of conversion survivors. And so Born Perfect kind of became a natural, like, hey, is there a partnership here? Is there, because they have an immense reach. The bulk of what they do is providing survivor resources and helping draft legislation, helping pass legislation, and providing these resources for folks. Because if you've ever seen in the news, like, conversion therapy banned in this county or this state, very probably behind the legislation that got, they know the letter of the law really well. They have tons of legal advisors who are able to, because you can't really legislate religious practices. So a lot of it had to be secular, a lot of it had to be like regional, but they're trying their best to legislate for minors, for secular practices. It's not, the work is never done, but the work they do is really important. So we wanted to see, like, hey, is there something that we could do with the book? The book at that point had been getting like a lot of like advanced buzz, and a lot of really good, people were vibing on it. So we were like, okay, this is like a good time for maybe this book, Born Perfect, could help it reach, their audience, who we know would obviously be interested in that kind of story being told. And then, is there a way that we could have a financial benefit? And so that was something that we came up with when in November, there was a week where we donated a portion of the sales to Born Perfect and so it was one of those things where if you'd already bought the book, and if you were going to get a gift, get it for a gift for somebody, if you just wanted to help, or if you were thinking about getting the book and hadn't, this was a perfect time to be like, this is how you can actually help. Because a lot of people had messaged me after reading the book to be like, there's it's a victory book, but there's some bleak stuff in there. There's some heavy stuff. And so there's people who would message me and be like, I'm so angry about this character. I'm so angry about this. I'm frustrated. I can't believe it's still going on. I'd be like, well, this is a perfect opportunity for you to help out real kids that are suffering right now, just like these people. And they're the ones who are equipped and able and doing the work to do that. So that partnership was like a no-brainer for me.
Cool. And if you're interested in getting more information, the website is bornperfect.org, and Crystal has dropped the link in there for you. We do encourage you to follow it and read up on it, support it, and try to share a little bit of what they're trying to do. All right, so, and it pains me to say that we only have about 10 minutes left, because I could literally talk to you guys just nonstop for endless amounts.
Are you sure about that?
I am very sure, because it's important to note that I'm not doing a lot of the talking, so all I have to do is introduce a topic. But so in the 10 minutes we got left, we got 4 questions that are sitting in the queue, and let's see if we can get through them.
Lightning round.
Yeah, lightning round, or some version of a lightning round. All right. So when working on a deadline, roughly how many words or pages do you both write per day? Do you have a target, or do you just write?
Zero. I write zero pages a day. I write nothing. I think in general, like having a deadline, having a target word count is good. In my experience, having it be too rigorous and too rigid and or too high self-defeats. Like, you will then go, this is a job, I don't want to do this job, I already have this other job, I can't be doing this, it's a pandemic, I can't be doing this right now, like, and then you'll just stop. So I just kind of do a ritual, just put the music on, shut the world as best you can, because a lot of it is for me with concentration issues even before this the pandemic. I just go, my job is to put myself into a trance. My job is to literally, like, transcendental meditation, go there. And just play and do what you can do. Because doing a little every day, even if it's 100 words a day, you will get the book done at some point. It's math. So I would say I'm very anti having a very rigorous thing. I'm very pro having a deadline, because also, like, like something like, oh, by April 1st, I need blah, just to get to that point. So then that's enough fire to keep you going, but not enough to get you to self-defeat. It's a terrible job. Don't do it.
What about you, Julian?
Yeah.
If I am drafting, if my deadline is for drafting, I use the Pacemaker app. and I let it tell me what I'm going to do. It is in control of me during that deadline. And then if I am editing or revising, it depends on how much I have to do. But if it's just a general like go through and edit and clean it up and everything, I have been known to do 20 pages a day. But sometimes it's like I said, it could be fewer. It just really depends on what portion of the manuscript you're in and how much you have to dedicate it to, because whatever it is that you're talking about within that portion. But again, Pacemaker has saved me in so many ways, and I use it. But it doesn't work for everybody, but it definitely works for me because it gives you these small increment goals that you can really like, okay, I can do that. And you'll be surprised how many times you go over what it actually tells you.
Okay. I've actually never heard of Pacemaker, so this is...
Yes, pacemaker.press. Go check it out.
Okay, cool. All right, so this next question, and I'm going to say the name here because there's a reason for this. Is from Carrie D. And now Carrie also has a message in here, and that's why I'm passing along. She says, "My dear Julian, I miss you. My writing club kids miss you up at North Gwinnett."
I miss that school so much.
and actually, you know, talking about in-person meetings, we have another question coming up about that too. But so Carrie asks, so you guys seem super confident. How do you stay committed to a story that scares you to write but begs to be written?
Confident.
Well, it does say you seem.
Okay, yes. Gotta read through everything, Julian. Yes, seem is the word.
Julian, we fooled everybody. That's great. Look at that. Yeah, like I mean, right now, I mean, I'm there's a whole bunch of stuff that's scaring me. I'm working on like 3 concurrent projects, and like I'm working on a rom-com, which is scaring me maybe more than anything because I'm very familiar with the thriller beats. I love a rom-com, but like I'm so used to crafting in this like thriller beat. So something that like scares me, that I think that's an opportunity because it's like, oh great, that's a chance to like really learn a different way of writing, to not be so flowery, to like really, because like rom-coms, like especially YA, like you got to be quicker with that. Like, so I think it's a challenge. I look at it all as like Drag Race challenges, where it's just like, oh, in this challenge you have to do this wild thing that you don't think is possible. So I view it as a challenge, and I think it's better off.
Carrie, I love you and miss you. I'm glad that I do come across confident, because I am often not very confident, especially when I'm drafting. I am very, very, very hard on myself, which is not a good way to be when you're drafting, because that's the chance where you get to be the most imperfect, right? But what I do is, especially when it's something that I really want to talk about, but it's scary, it terrifies me to have to talk about, which I've gotten better and better at. I love to use other tools to remind me of the great parts of what I'm trying to tell, or the happier moments, or the reason I was inspired in the first place. So of course, like playlists are huge for me, and Pinterest is a huge thing for me, because I go in there and not only do I feel like my Pinterest vision board with stuff that relates to the topic and themes I want to talk about, but then I find like fun things like, oh, what would my character wear on, a Saturday going to the movies, or just like these other little small cheat codes within your manuscript that helps you see that while you're talking about something that is very near and dear to you and you want to get it perfect and whatnot, there are so many more aspects to who we are as humans besides just that one thing that consumes so much of us, that it's often good to see those smaller details to remind yourself, you know what, I'm just human. The person that you're talking about may be an alien, I don't know, but they have a story, but that is not all that they are. It's just a piece of them. See the other pieces so that you can see the broader picture, and that helps me out a big deal.
All right, so speaking of the kids at North Gwinnett, we're going to talk about in person. There's a question here. It says, what is the #1 thing that you are both looking forward to when in-person literary events can fully come back?
I am most looking forward to, it's just like the casual interaction is going to be big for me. especially because I know doing like these Zooms and whatnot, some people just aren't comfortable being on camera or having their audio talking to you. But in those big events or in-person things, they'll kind of like pull you to the side in the corner, and they'll be themselves. And I look forward to people feeling like they can be themselves around me again. And also, I am such a huge hugger, y'all. And I love my mom's dog, but I need new people to hug again.
That would be my answer. I miss hugs.
I need hugs
Yeah.
so bad.
What I'm most excited about for in-person events is to have them. I've never had one. I dropped for the first time during this panini, and I don't know what any real situation is like. Again, what I'm really like, my whole like experience of being a debut author has just been like, for like 7 years, I wrote this book in my little office, in my little room, at my, everything little, walls coming in on me. And then I was like, great, I sold this book, I'm gonna go. And then like my whole tour was just like, all right, I'm in my little office, I'm in my little room, I'm in my little thing. As soon as I'm like, oh my God, everybody, like when we hang up here in like a few minutes, like I'm just gonna be like, oh, that's so exciting, click. And then it's gonna be me sitting here. Like, I'm just gonna be like, all right, I just gotta like go downstairs now. Like I'm excited for the vibe. I'm excited for like, because these events, like when I've been as an attendee, when I have been a big Julian Winters fan, in the audience being like, well, I'm with Chris Jenner with the camera, like I'm like, I'm excited to like get into that energy again, even if I'm just there as the fan again. Like I'm just like excited to like be in that rhythm. There's a rhythm to like being around other writers, other readers, other fans of everything. There's like multiples going on at once, because I know there's like more going on than just my little thing. Like I'm very, very excited to be in that motion.
Okay, and we've got one more here. Emotionally, what's the difference drafting second and third and fourth novel to the first one? So I guess drafting subsequent novels rather than the first one.
Right. First novel is emotionally, it's you have to come up with a lot of the courage yourself, because you to keep going and to be like, you're not a wannabe author, you're not a aspiring author, you're an author. You have to like really constantly validate yourself. So that's hard. Everything else is great and easy because you have no deadlines. No one is waiting on this except like your friend that you keep talking to it about. And that's exciting, and to be like, oh great, it gets done when it gets done. So but the thing that's like better about like if you have a second or third one, especially if it's already been sold, is like, oh great, this is like good, it's confirmed, it's going somewhere. I know when I write it, someone's gonna read it. It's it's gonna be great. Other than that, like it's been a lot of like emotionally, it's just been a lot of like somehow this is gonna have to get done. Like you're on such a different clock. So
for me, I totally agree with Adam. The first book was like the first time going to Starbucks and having like coffee. It was just like, oh my gosh, I've been missing this whole time. It was so much fun to live without deadlines, to live without, the only worry that you have is, okay, is someone gonna actually buy this? Like that's your biggest concern during that whole time. Since the first novel, my imposter syndrome has increasingly gotten larger and larger with every subsequent novel, because now you have a book out and there are people who actually like it. So now the expectation is, I got to get you to like a whole nother story. Unless you're writing a series, then it's like, okay, you're bought into me for like 2 to 3 books, so we're good right now. But I don't write series, I write standalones. So with every book, it's like, I don't want to fail you. I don't want to fail the reader. And that pressure just continuously mounts on me. And especially because I am exploring new things that I was not, skilled enough to explore in my first book. So now I'm I'm diving into deeper things and taking a look at things that I was scared to talk about before. And now it's even more pressure, like, oh my gosh, I'm going to fail you. I'm going to fail you. I'm going to fail you. So it's not easy, but it is all a self-mental game, because there are people who believe in you. You have an agent or an editor or whoever you have in your corner for a reason. It's not because you lack the talent, but you have to continuously remind yourself that you are more than capable. And if not, if there is a part that you fail at, they are there to help you fix that, to help you succeed, because they're invested in it as just as much as you are. So it's hard. I am not going to lie. I broke down several times writing How to Be Remy Cameron, but it's worth it at the end of the day. I promise you it's worth it. It's just know that it never gets easier. You could ask authors who have 16, 17 novels out, and they'll tell you, yeah, I really struggled for like 6 months trying to get the story out, which is why you often see like, oh, you guys, just want you to know this book is now coming out 6 months from now instead of today. Da 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 da. It usually not usually, but it tends to be because of that struggle that we face as being creatives, of not only trying to tell a great story, but trying to tell a great story that the readers can appreciate and value.
Yeah, there's like, and also like when you're drafting that second novel, mute Twitter and Instagram accounts that are specifically accounts that are like, and not because like you don't like them, like Bookstagram accounts, like, or whatever, like, because if you go through it, because something will start to feed in your head, specifically when you're writing, because the thing Julian's talking about, which is we've all seen the post of like, all right, this is a 2.5-star book. I normally worship this author. They really let me down. I'm kind of done with this author now. Like, you'll just like see these posts and it's about somebody else. And you're just like, it's gonna happen to me. Like, you're like, yeah, it just really devastated me. Yeah, I'm pretty torn up. Yeah, it's over. It's over for Julian Winters now. Yeah, it's just like, you just like, it's all you hear in your head when you're seeing this. So like when you're drafting that next one, just like even people who have been like super cool, just to mute them all and then like, unmute or whatever when you're like not drafting and you don't like have to maintain a certain like, certain messages.
And imposter syndrome, we always cover that at the conference in one form or another, and it's a very real thing, and we do it because, and we throw as many speakers up there on the stage or on screen as we can, because we want people to see that it is a constant struggle. It's not like you're going to get published and suddenly it's going to go away. It's just a battle. We live inside our heads writing these things, and we doubt ourselves constantly. So
it's The Simpsons. It's the remove the stone of shame, attach the stone of triumph. It's nothing more clear than that. Yeah.
All right. Well, we are out of time, but I do encourage you all to check in with these two and make sure you're following them on social media. AdamSassBooks.com, JulianWinters.com. Keep up with them. Encourage them. Tell them how awesome they are. Do videos that they rate 4 and 5 stars and make them feel very good about themselves because they write awesome books. But I'm grateful to you both for being here. And thank you to everybody who's in attendance. And I hope you guys got a lot out of it. This video will be edited and thrown on our YouTube channel. So, if anybody wants to watch it again or share it with others, please encourage you to do so. And that's all I got. But Adam, we're going to see you next month and then see you again in October too. And Julian, you're on retainer. I just pretty much call you whenever I need you. So.
And I gladly come, Zach, anytime. You can send me that email. I'm there.
All right. Well, thank you all, and have a good night.
Thank you. Thank you, Crystal.
Yes, thank you, Crystal. Crystal did awesome.